at the time of Joseph. So what I'm saying to you,
he was the first one who pushed the whole field of the one God within that time.
no, God, the understanding of God has always been prevalent as being one. Even those tribes from Africa, going back since the beginning of time, they always believed in a residual concept of a one supreme being who's unlike his creation, who's created the universe, who is beyond the universe, who is independent of the universe.
No, they did not.
They did.
They believe in different symbols and different gods.
Yeah, but that developed. Let me explain to you.
No.
I've read up about this, the Gilgamesh. So I've read up about this. So what I'm trying to say to you, these were later developments. Through history, the concept of a one supreme being has always been prevalent. Always been prevalent. Hinduism and other such faiths have then usurped that and given the rights of the one true God and made it ubiquitous to creation. So people become gods. Like in the Hindu faith, Ram, Vishnu, Ganesh, all these individuals became forms of deity when they made no such claim. So God historically has always been referred to as a one supreme being. You can see these remnants in the world scriptures. But what they do, okay, show me to the contrary then.
It's not the contrary. As far as I know, people were not worshipping one God.
Who wasn't worshipping one God?
Well, I'm not going back to like, you take Egypt for one, yeah? They were not worshipping one God.
Okay.
They were worshipping different deities.
Yes,
yeah?
which developed.
No. They were doing that before the one God.
Right from the beginning of time.
No.
So you've got evidence.
Before the one God movement started in Egypt, yeah, that's what they did.
The God one movement didn't start in Egypt. Yeah, the one God movement did not start in Egypt. The God of understanding of the one has been ubiquitous to Ethiopia, to East Africa, to East. Brother, let me just.
2,000 years ago. I don't know. The Christian religion is what, from 2,000 years ago?
Rocky, do you want to carry on? You want to take over? Okay. So basically speaking, so this has always been a ubiquitous understanding that one creator. Have you read about the epics or the novices of the Gilgamesh, the pre-Old Testament scriptures, for those who were encapsulated in Baal and El and other such deities? They believed in one God, but they later pluralized into many deities. So, for example, in our the Islamic concept as well, the Arabs as well were those who believed in actually one God. But then what they did, they gave that one God. Let me just finish my point. They then gave that one God many associates. So then they had idolatry. Let me just finish my point. So then they made that God, in terms of giving him that God an idolatrous type of understanding.
Brother, can you go this
with
side,
like
if you don't mind? So
hundreds of like different gods were attained. Although they did believe in the one true God.
Yeah, they're blocking that.
Although they did, that's fine. Yeah. So although they did believe in the one true God, so this has been always a tight. Now, unless you can refer to me any scholarly academic source which shows that the original understandings of the very ancient and the very first people was that there is a multiplicity of different gods. Okay, show me. Can you give me any source?
All right.
Okay, no problem.
Can you give me source?
Of course I can give you a source, yes. So let's go as far back as the I've already given citation to. Karen Armstrong is a very famous scholar who's spoken about the history of God. Who's spoken about the history of God, in which she makes reference to the Gilgamesh, to the Old Testament, to all the other prevailing African faiths who believed in a one singular being. But what happened over time? But okay, I've given you a reference. You're saying to me, forget about the reference, basically. You're saying to me, okay, so you show me a contrary reference then.
All right. I'm going back to like Martyr's time.
Yes.
In Egypt.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is way before Christianity.
Yes.
No, I'm not saying this.
Yes. So time of Joseph, that's what you're referring to, aren't you? Yeah. But that wasn't at the beginning of time.
Only
Yeah.
one God.
Beginning of time,
Yes.
they did not believe in the one God.
Yeah, but what?
They worship different things.
Yeah, but that you're referring to the time of Joseph, the prophet Yusuf,
How do
Joseph.
you define this? For example, not person.
He was the contemporary of the king you referred to.
How far back do you
He's a
think
male, he's a female, he's a
humanity
human
goes?
being who doesn't.
Goes back to wherever it needs to go back to. But we've got recordings of historical works which show the concept of God has always been unilaterally one divine being. Even the Hindu scriptures, which claim to be 5,000 BC. Let me finish, please. I'm not a Hindu. I'm just letting you know, though. So you're not giving me. You're looking at.
I'm looking away, but
Yeah,
I'm letting you talk.
I know.
I'm not
So
interrupting you.
yeah,
I'm
that's
not
fine.
walking
So
away.
what I'm saying to you, even the Hindu scriptures, which are commonly understood as having many deities, And later this became a development where their major characters became deities. However, those protagonists, they never claimed any such claim to being divine. So that's why I've mentioned Ganesh or Ram or Vishnu, who were referred to as the epochs of the one true God. And Hinduism, according to many scholars, is deemed to be the oldest of the faiths, according to a good consensus of scholars. That doesn't mean it's unilaterally true, but they also, in their books, refer to God as only one. Are you listening to what I'm saying to you? Even in the Shoklas, even in their Puranas, it states that God is one. Beside their God, there is no other God. But despite that, they then make many other imageries of God. They make their major protagonists to be God.
Right. You give me references to that so I can look up those references. Yeah? Okay. But as far as I'm aware, that the people from way back had all different kinds of gods. They never believed in one God.
I mean, obviously, I don't want to disrespect you, so you have to give me reference to that. You understand? You can't just say it and then after say, okay, and
You give me reference as well, but I have to actually read those references. Okay?
That's fair enough. I respect that. I respect that. Yes, man. So what we say as Muslims then is that there's only one true God, who's unlike his creation. He's not a man, he's not a woman, he's not an idol, he's not a statue. God is a supreme being who's unlike his creation. God is beyond the universe.
Right, I get that. But for me, I have to see all this myself. I mean, I can read it, I can hear it, but I have to experience it myself.
Yeah.
For me to, you know what I mean? If I'm not experiencing it and seeing it, I cannot say, yes, that is it. And that's the way it is.
Yeah, no, but what I would say to you is to consider, if there are many gods, if there are hundreds of gods, then just say one God wants to do one thing at one time, another God wants to do another thing at one time. There will be a clash. Who will be the one supreme being?
All right. If there is one God,
yes.
Why does it take so many different religions, okay, to express that one God?
It's easy answer. I've already answered you. All the world religions, except for Islam.
Why does it take all these different religions? Okay? Why can't it just, if there's one God, why is it just one religion?
Can I answer that question? Listen to the response and think what I'm saying. So I'm answering your question directly.
I'm
yeah,
thinking.
good man. I'm not trying to condescend. I'm just making you make you learn. So what I'm trying to say is that in all the world scriptures, even in the New Testament, the Old Testament, the Bhagavad Gita, in the Buddhist scriptures, in the Zoroastrian scriptures, in the scriptures of all the major world religions, you get remnants of the oneness of God. So for example, let's look at the New Testament for Christians. Jesus says that there's only one true God and he's the messenger of God.
Where did he learn that from?
Where did he learn that from? He's the one who represents God and is sent by God.
He learned it in Egypt.
No, he never learned it in Egypt. He wasn't in Egypt at that
He
time.
learned it in Egypt.
But he wasn't in Egypt, with due respect. Okay, give me a source which shows he was in Egypt learning.
Akhenaten, okay? You learn. Akhenaten was the one who started the one God movement in Egypt.
Sorry. No, that's not the case. No, because
Akhenaten was the one who...
So, okay, let me ask, when did Akhenaten live? Let me ask you a question.
Listen to me, right? It says that Jesus went around breaking all the false gods or whatever. Akhenaten did that way before Jesus. That whole story has been taken in text.
Okay, who invited Akhenaten to the one God?
Who invited?
Who invited Akhenaten to the one God?
What do you mean, who invited him?
Okay, who was Akhenaten? Let me ask you.
He was a pharaoh.
Right, and which time, this is what I'm trying to explain to you, which time did Akhenaten live? Who was his contemporary? Joseph. It was Joseph. Yusuf, it's not mentioned in the Bible, in the Old Testament. That Akhenaten was the king at that particular time, and he was prevailing over Egypt, and then there was a big famine. So then he was residing at the time, and then he was one who was, he wasn't clearly an idolater, but neither did he have the concept of a one true God either. So at the time of Joseph, then this is not what you call beginning of time. This is well down course of history. This is well down the course of history. I don't know why you're referring to this as an example of that. Akhenaten was a contemporary of Joseph. Joseph was one who was put in jail because he wasn't tempted by one of the leaders of that particular time who refused to have intimate relations with his wife. So he was put into jail. So when he was put into jail, the prevailing king at the time, Akhenaten, as you made mention, let me just finish. It's because who was Akhenaten? Tell me then. You tell me.
Akhenaten was very how can I put it? He envisioned a lot. Okay, hang on, he envisioned a lot. He did not like the way his people were and how they were acting.
I'm listening to you. I'm listening.
In fact, took people out from Egypt and started and built a new city in the desert.
Right. So let's just repeat that once more. Finally, do you accept Akhenaten was a contemporary of Joseph?
No.
You don't. Why don't you accept that?
Is that right?
Because that's the narrative that we've got from the Old Testament.
It actually tells you that Akhenaten was a contemporary of Joseph.
Yes. So we're going. We seem to be going in different directions. Unless you can show me again understanding that he wasn't, I'd like to see that.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, I shall look for it and I'll get it for you.
No problem. So in the meantime, let's go back to the concept of one God. So as believers believe in that there can only logically be one creator as well. I'll give you an example. If there are many creators, God for thunder, God for lightning, God for air, God for breathing, God for whatever, then just say they all come into conflict with each other in terms of how they want the universe to run. Just say today one God says, I want it to be sunshine. Other God says, no, I want it to be rain. Like, listen to the point. So the point being, therefore, is that if one God has to be supreme, there cannot be an infinite past dependent series of gods. It's like saying you've got all these different chains of infinite regression, which can't be the case.
There's no coincidences in nothing in your mind. Huh?
Pardon?
There's no coincidences in anything.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm trying to say to you,
There's no coincidences at all.
yes, I know, I agree. But what I'm saying to you,
No, I'm asking you. Is that what you believe? There's no coincidences.
yeah, everything is created. There is no coincidence.
Planned, yeah?
Pardon?
Everything's planned.
Planned, yes. The universe is so infinitesimally precise to its degree that it's mind-blowing. In every facet, from the atoms, the way the electrons and protons run in circularity, where the particles. So you're dismissing it, but you're not giving me any reasons to suggest otherwise. You say.
All right. Do you believe that the universe was created in 7 days?
No, what we as Muslims say that God created the universe. So these time frames I just made mention so that we can understand this. It wasn't literally a 24-hour cycle.
From nothing.
Let me explain. So it wasn't literally a 24-hour cycle. But the Bible says that God created the earth in 6 days and rested on the 7th. I mean, nonsense like that. We don't believe that nonsense. We don't say God rests. The supreme almighty God, it doesn't need to have a little kip after doing a bit of hard work. When he simply wills something, he says be and it is. That is the very definition of the supreme God. No slumber or no sleep take over him.
Okay, so from nothing comes from nothing.
Precisely, that's a good point. So what we say as a creator, how can the universe come from nothing? By definition, nothing is the absence of everything and anything. Hence, it makes no sense to say that the universe comes from nothing. Number one.
Well, how can God come from nothing?
Excellent question. So then what we ask the question, we cannot have an infinite past chain of dependent chain of events. So if you ask the question, where did God come from? Did he come from nothing? So the answer to that is very straightforward. The universe came into existence 13.8 billion years ago, according to scientific understanding. So that something started the universe, something independent, which cannot be a part of the universe. That cannot be, because the universe is a contingent part set of things. Yes, the universe is made up of parts. Something which has to be independent of those parts has to be the real initiator of the universe. So who created God becomes redundant, because if you go on forever, number one, we will not come into the present. If there's an infinite past chain of dependent chain of events, we will not come into the present. Make sense?
No, because you're going to need that to come to the present. Because it steps downwards.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is that if we go on forever and there's no starting point, yes, we would not be in the present. So if everything goes up, for example,
Yes,
just say you're, yeah.
There is a start.
Precisely.
My point is,
Yeah.
the starting point. What is the starting point?
That's a good question.
And how can you get God out of nothing?
Right,
how
good.
can you get universe out of nothing?
Precisely. You can't get the universe out of nothing because by
You can
definition,
get God out of nothing, yeah?
no, because you can't get God out, because God by definition, listen to my point, what I'm trying, God by definition is independent. So hence God has to always exist eternally. Why? Listen carefully to my point. If God does not exist eternally, then we will go on forever as dependent set of infinite chain of events. And if we go on for that, there will never be a starting point. It's like, for example, you go get permission from work to do a particular job, and you ask your boss. So your boss says, hang on a minute, let me ask my boss. And he goes, that boss says to his boss, oh, I've got to get permission from my boss. And that goes on forever. Will you ever get your assignment done, or will you ever get your job done? You won't, will you? So hence there has to be a starting point. So that, yes.
And that's what I'm saying as well. I know the starting point.
Yeah, so that starting point is the Almighty, who is an independent
but
being.
from nothing. How can you get something from nothing?
Yeah, precisely. So I think we're going around this. What I'm saying to you, listen carefully, by definition, nothing is the absence of everything and anything. So hence there has to be something which is always eternal, which is a creator, who has a conscious will, who has a conscious mind. Listen, for example, a mobile phone.
So, that infinite creator, should we say,
Yeah.
has always been there.
Yes. Because what's the other possibility? If they listen carefully, just try to, just digest it. If 13.8 billion, if 13, but my friend,
I can believe the chemistry part of it.
Yeah.
In the Big Bang Theory.
Right.
I can believe that.
But what we're trying to say, because science can go only so far in terms of empirical understanding. This deals in the philosophy of science, something which is in the metaphysical, which is by definition incomprehensible. But if we apply logic and we understand that if the universe came into existence, that means there was a point when there was no universe. Logic dictates that. Now, as me and you speak, if I put my hand out towards you, what we got between us? We got time, matter, space, energy, all these constructs of the universe coming into existence. So something which has so the universe has been created. Some supernatural event has taken place. Listen to the logic.
Earth was created by God.
Yes, everything was created by God. Yes.
So you don't believe that Earth came out from collisions and whatever out in space and then cooled down?
Yeah, that's evolutionary. You're talking about the evolutionary process of certain events occurring, giving rise to creation and giving rise to what you call the evolution of how we've come about, for example. So there's no issue with that. We're talking about the very essence of a creator who is beyond the universe, because this is dealing in the matters of the metaphysical. So when you go into matters of metaphysical, which is incomprehensible, but by logic it dictates something has to be independent of the very laws of the universe. Yeah.
But surely, if that independent metaphysical universe cannot have started out of nothing as well.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It will require a conscious will, because listen, an inanimate object cannot give rise to animacy. Inanimacy cannot give rise to animacy. So hence what we're saying is that something has to have a conscious will.
I don't think you're explaining it, I don't think religion can explain it. I don't think science can explain it. We don't understand it.
Okay, so that's it. Yeah, but what we're trying to say, that what we then do, if we don't know, we look at the possibilities. There's only 4 possibilities, unless you tell me of a 5th one.
I don't know. I mean, I'm racking my brain to make myself understand.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Because it is something that's monumental.
Yes, but listen, look at those excellent words you used, monumental. But what does monumentalism really imply? It implies something supernatural has occurred. Now, how can something inanimate and nothing create something that is something would have even if you're saying that nothing would have to, by definition, it doesn't make any sense anyway, what I've just said, because it's the absence of everything and anything. The universe coming into existence, a supernatural event has occurred, something must have initiated it.
Yes.
Right,
and that's where I'm confused with.
Right, and so what we said, that initiation, by definition, has to be beyond the universe and independent of the universe and supreme beyond the universe.
Yes,
that's definitively.
I get what you're saying.
Yes.
I understand all that.
Okay.
But for me, for that essence to have formed, surely that essence is not it's not, as you say, it's always there. It's always been there.
Yes, because what's the other alternative? Okay, so because because by the definition of what we've just spoken about, those 4 residual points. Look, we as human beings can only think what's within our brain capacity. If we think about the plausibility of the creation of the universe, there are only those 4 possibilities. A universe that created itself, which wouldn't make sense, would imply that the universe has a conscious mind behind it. If the universe created itself, it's like saying a mother giving birth to herself. Totally nonsensical, number 1. But I'm just making, I'm doing a process of elimination. So this because
the basic concept of religion, isn't it?
Yeah. So what we're saying then, yes, yeah, because the only then possibility would be a conscious will. Sometimes people who dispute that refer to it as the hard argument of consciousness.
I'd love to be here talking to you, but I've got to go to my grandson.
Okay, no problem. I appreciate your time as well. Thank you. Sorry if I spoke a little bit vociferously, but that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Alhamdulillah, it's a nice conversation with our friend here who's claiming to be a Buddhist, and we were speaking about the topics that we usually speak about. And alhamdulillah, at the end of the day, when they keep on saying we don't know, we've got the plausible, logical explanations of everything. They don't have those explanations. Their repetitive thing is I don't know. So when we say there are only 4 possibilities, tell us the 5th one, then they can't answer these questions. You see. So hence, like Sherlock Holmes, which I commonly refer to say, whatever's left over in the possible circumstances of a particular event occurring, and you dismiss the other possibilities, which we've dismissed, then the thing which is left over must be true. So by definition, the concept of the universe from our creator can only be the plausible explanation. Inshallah, hope Allah guides it. Assalamu alaikum.
Somebody like yourself.